Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Making Lean Fly podcast. In this episode, we've got a really interesting subject, as we always do, which is daily management and problem solving. And I've got three really good guests. As usual, we always have some of our key lean experts or Six Sigma experts to talk about the subject in hand. In this case, we've got our regular, Anthony Howarth, who's our global lean leader. We've got Gary Shurmer, one of our lean experts from Europe, and Jose Rodriguez, who's a lean expert from North America. And I'll ask those guys to introduce themselves in a few moments. But the abstract for this session is that daily management and problem solving as a phrase sounds like a bit of a tautology to many lean leaders, as for them, daily management is about problem solving. Nevertheless, experience has taught that without a real emphasis on problem solving, daily management quickly comes about reporting the news, spending time explaining what went wrong and why it will be okay next time. However, daily management must be about making the news, and it's therefore crucial that everyone involved knows how to problem solve effectively and ensure that daily management is driving performance improvement, as the name suggests, every day. So with that in mind, we're going to have a really interesting discussion, I'm sure, with the panelists around, a number of questions about this subject. But as I said, let's start with the introduction. So, Gary, you've been on once before, but maybe you could just introduce yourself to the listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Gary Shurmer. So I've been with GKN for 6 months. I've been in the aerospace industry for probably just over 10 years. And have experience from Toyota. So as Philip said, I'm a lean expert. I'm based in Filton and Western Approach. Thoroughly enjoying my experience so far with GKN.
Great. No, and it's great to have you on the call again, or on the show again, Gary. Thank you. And then Jose, yeah, first time on our podcast, but we'll probably find a little bit later on that you've got some interesting stories about your own podcast, but maybe a quick introduction to yourself.
Yes, Philip, thank you for having me first. Big fan of the show. Jose Rodriguez, I'm the lean expert for the engines business line in GKN. I've been with GKN for a year and a half now, and I live here in sunny Southern California, in Temecula, wine country for Southern California.
Absolutely. Fantastic. No, great to have you on, Jose. And then, yeah, our regular, Anthony, just quick introduction for anybody who's not virtually met you before.
Yeah, thanks, Philip. Glad to be on the show. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm Anthony Howarth. I'm the global lean leader here at GKN Aerospace, and I am coming up to 4 years in the role and 4 years in the company.
Brilliant. Yeah, and it's great. It's been fantastic 4 years with you in. So yeah, let's jump into. We'll do a few fun facts later, but let's get into the subject now. So let's start with the question. What is daily management? And Gary, maybe you can start us off with that.
Yeah. So the way I consider daily management is around how we manage and measure our performance moving forward and looking backwards. So it's about what are the key drivers that we need to consider. How are we driving those drivers? How are we measuring them? And how are they visible to everyone to see? So it's a bit like knowing exactly what it is that I need to achieve. How many am I achieving against that? And really, what am I doing to make sure that I get that to my end goal really efficiently and effectively? And what's stopping me from doing the things that I need to do on a daily basis? So,
yeah. Absolutely. And you know what was interesting in that brief explanation, which I thought was a great one, Gary, was you didn't actually mention the medium that we use. You didn't talk about the daily management board, because I think sometimes people think that just having a daily management board nailed up on the wall, or having an electronic daily management board is daily management itself, but it's much more than that, isn't it?
Oh no, absolutely it is. I mean, that's just one of the tools that can be used in terms of your daily stand up, whether it be a start of the shift and end of the shift. But daily management you can have on machines, you can have on processes, on areas. There's many different formats that you can use, but it's around how do you how do you measure what you're doing? How well are you performing? And then you can start making the right decisions about what I need to do and how am I going to go about doing it.
Yeah, so let's not confuse the tools with the actual process and intent of daily management. Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks, Gary. So then the second half of this show's title is problem solving. So Jose, what is problem solving?
Well, linking it to daily management and problem solving, the way I see it is this is a mechanism to empower our associates to make decisions regarding our performance indicators, problem solve in case we're not meeting our targets, and then they make the decisions to solve the problems within their small area of influence. If I cannot do it, then I escalate it. And the key word here is empower our associates. And that's, I think, why sometimes we fail. Empower our associates is meaning putting a mirror in front of ourselves and as leaders and really teaching them and coaching them and being with them, problem solving, so then we can let go. Empowering is not just, I'm giving you the responsibility and that's it. So yeah, problem solving at the different levels in the organization means I can change what I can influence in order to meet my targets. And that takes time, coaching and educating and being patient and really empowering, caring out for our associates and empowering them. That's the way I see problem solving in daily management. Yeah, very human oriented, and I think it should be.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that. I love, two things you said, two of the key phrases about empowerment and about, human focused. I think that's beautiful. I love that, Jose. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip.
So if we think about this, we've got the daily management and problem solving, and something that I talked about in the abstract was about making the news instead of reporting it. So Anthony, what do we mean by that?
Yeah, so I would say that, there's a danger when this is not done well, that we end up using the daily management process or the daily management meeting or the daily management board to report the status, to talk about, what happened, what went wrong, and perhaps why. But it's not intended to be just talking about the actual status, whether that's the hour by hour status or the end of shift status or the end of the day status. Daily management, with problem solving, is really about making the news. It's about problem solving. It's about taking ownership. It's about driving accountability and problem solving to actually deliver the impact and deliver the performance that the company expects. And that's what making the news is. It's making a difference. It's making your numbers, taking the ownership and accountability, solving the prioritized problems, and delivering the performance that's expected, or even going beyond the expected performance.
Okay, so again, that links a little back to what Jose said, doesn't it? It kind of says, well, we're going to empower people, but empowerment is about them having the knowledge, the information, the data to be able to make decisions and problem solve, but then really setting that expectation that they do deliver and that they are managing and they're not making excuses up for why things didn't happen. They're really driving that performance. I mean, is that a good summary, Anthony?
Yeah, I would say that it is. Obviously, there's leadership that's required, to enable that to happen. People need to feel safe. They need to feel capable, confident. They need to have the right kind of support and coaching. The opportunity to escalate when they're struggling. Within our company, at least, we've got different levels of problem solving for different levels of people in the organization. So at the very lowest level, we have what we call 3C problem solving, whereby there's a concern that's identified. We're looking for the cause of that, and then looking to identify the countermeasure to countermeasure the cause. And we expect that probably 80% of the problems will be solved using that very simple problem solving methodology. Where that's not adequate, we've got A3 practical problem solving that we would use for probably 10 to 15% of the problems. The more complex problems that perhaps require a cross-functional team to get together to solve the problem. And then for the remaining 5% of our most critical problems, where we have proven that we haven't been successful solving those problems using 3C or practical problem solving, we'd effectively escalate that and use our Six Sigma methodology to help us solve those kind of problems.
Yeah, so that's great explanation, that I think, of that kind of problem escalation. But I guess when you talk about the percentages, you're talking about the number of problems, but in fact, I guess the amount of time spent increases significantly as you go up that hierarchy of problem solving.
Mm-hmm.
It does, but I also think that it's also related to the approach as well. There's no reason why A3 practical problem solving can't be done in a number of hours or a small number of days. And similarly, when something's escalated to Six Sigma, again, depending on the complexity of the problem, it might be solved within a small number of days, or for something that's really tricky, it might take a number of weeks or even months. So I don't think that the time scale is directly related, but I think from a percentage perspective, it's probably roughly in line, with the 80% for 3C, maybe 10 to 15 for A3 practical problem solving, and maybe 5% for Six Sigma.
Yeah, that's great, Anthony. Thanks for the clarification there. And I think, Gary, that I'll come to you with this, because I think what Anthony's opened up there is a really interesting point, and something that I see or observe quite often is problem solving perhaps stalling or going really slowly once it goes above a 3C. A3s that take weeks or months to be resolved, Six Sigma usage becoming about only DMAIC projects, and then those DMAIC projects taking 6, 9, 12 months and longer. I think there is a sense of urgency that needs to be injected into problem solving, isn't there? And as Anthony said, A3s could be done same day if you get the team together and do that. Six Sigma isn't just about doing DMAIC projects. It can be about the application of one of those tools, but in a very structured way, very rapidly. So what do you think, Gary? What's your experiences with this?
So I think there's this misconception, I think, just on my perspective, there's a little bit of difference between solving and fixing problems immediately, and if we think about we want this army of problem solvers, and what we want is anything that arises at any given time, we want it fixed straight away. The simple things, we fix them straight away, and that's where we need the team leader support in there. And we spoke before on different podcasts about and if I've got an issue, I need someone to come and help me. And we don't need 3C format to do that. I think parts of the problem that I see currently is we don't really start thinking about and talking about the problems, and we don't document the problems properly. Therefore, we kind of conceal it within a team or within a group of people, and they just fix it, or they believe they fix it. But ultimately, we need the documentation, we need the process and the methodology that they went through to fix, because if there was no true fix, we could kind of understand what it is that they did or didn't do. So we don't kind of keep replicating and doing the same things over and over again. The 3Cs is a perfectly great format for it. And again, the 3C for me is also about making the news. It's about if I'm using the daily management board as an example, this is what I achieved yesterday. These are the reasons I didn't achieve. These are the problems that I came across. This is what I'm going to do today to resolve those problems. Or this is what I'm going to do this week. So I'm kind of saying and preempting this is what I'm going to do by utilizing the 3C. And if I keep the correct documentation of the 3C, if I get any repeat, I can go back and say, well, actually, this is what I did. Am I still doing that, if that makes sense? And I think people, and Ant is absolutely right with an A3. I think people see an A3 as a laborious task that just takes days and days and days. But if you just think about it as a story, it literally is just a story of what's happened, how have I clarified that, what I want to get to, how am I going to get there, what have I done, did it succeed or not succeed? And then you've got the real more complex ones, such as your Six Sigma and the customer driven 8Ds, which we don't want, but ultimately we do. We have to do them because we're not solving our problems internally.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I see it. I don't think we're utilizing the simplest level of problem solving sufficiently. Therefore, the problem festers and gets bigger. And then we end up doing massive A3s on them that do take weeks because we can't draw the resource at the right time to solve.
Absolutely, Gary. I think that's fantastic kind of summary of some of the biggest challenges we have and how we should be dealing with them. And it's one of those old sayings, isn't it, that wine gets better with age, problems don't.
No.
We really need to make sure we're nipping those problems in the bud early before they fester, as you say, and become much larger.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think as well, I'm sorry, I'm just we should also focus on the successes of our daily management. As if I have a really, really good day, what can I do to make sure that today's even better? Instead of just setting along and going, oh yeah, we did all right yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
let's do the same. Actually, no, we did all right yesterday, but what can we do better today? And I think maybe we just sometimes focus a little bit too much on the red, not sufficient on the green as well. We've got to replicate success. We want repeatable and reproducible, and we want to get better each day. So it works both ways. Yeah,
I think people sometimes look at me a little bit stupidly or like I'm a bit stupid when I say this, but actually, when you overperform, sometimes you should do perhaps, and maybe problem solving is the wrong word, wrong term, but problem solving. Our standard said we should hit 10, we actually hit 12. Why were we able to hit 12? Why did we go over the standard? And that can open up an opportunity for improvement, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think the other thing, and I guess this is something that is in your wheelhouse, Jose, is around recognition as well. So Gary said, let's use daily management to recognize when we're winning as well as when we're losing. And I guess recognition plays a big part in that, Jose.
It's incredible. If we think about it, Anthony mentioned people need to feel safe to problem solve and to escalate problems. Gary mentioned about communication. Let's think about what daily management does for engagement. Really, if there is a problem and I escalate it, and me again putting the mirror in front of me as leader and coming back and saying, you escalated a problem, here it is, we solved it for you, thank you very much, we did really good. Communicate properly. I mean, in going back to the tool, not the process, but our daily management board, we always start with people. And I think it's very easy to take the virtue away of that section. How many Kaizens per person per month, or happy or sad face, but there's so many ways to create engagement about success, about even a problem that we solve, that's a success, right? Or an escalation, or having management back there supporting the team lead or the group lead. That section of people creates tremendous amount of engagement if we use it properly. I see sites that our HR group doesn't even understand what daily management, and then I know we're gonna get to the problems and how can it fail, but they don't understand it, or leadership doesn't understand. They go and do quote unquote kamishibai to find what the problem is with the team lead running that, and that takes away everything that we're talking about engagement and supporting our people. Daily management creates this amazing opportunity for us to create engagement. And then this virtuous cycle of engaged people are better at problem solving, are better at raising their hand when there's a problem, are better at engaging in the process and improving the process, which is what we want. So yes, daily management is an incredible tool for engagement.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talked about that kamishibai part, and that gets into the key part about kamishibai is blame the process, not the person.
Correct.
Right? If something's not going right, because I think it was Deming who said, a bad process will beat a great person every time. So the idea of Kamishibai is, let's go and see what's wrong with the process that's not enabling the person to do the best job they possibly can. And I was reflecting, and I don't know what the outcome will be, and it could absolutely be that the person involved did do something wrong and might have some culpability in this. But what I thought was very interesting was the horrendous catastrophe in Greece with the railway incident. The automatic reaction of the authorities seems to be blame the person, right? They've immediately gone and arrested the local operator, and it's immediately all eyes on the person as being the problem. When, for me, the starting point should be what went wrong with the process, and ultimately it might be that the person did something that they shouldn't have done, but let's start with the process, not the person. And I think that's a key part about daily management, isn't it? Always challenge the process. But just getting back to something you mentioned, Jose, as well, and I think maybe Anthony, you'd be a good one to address this to you. Jose talked, I think you used the term psychological safety, and when we talk about our daily management board and we talk about people, safety, quality, delivery, cash, and cost, and I know some people say, well, if safety is the most important thing, why isn't safety first? Why have we got people first? Well, my answer is always twofold. Firstly, why do we want to be safe? Well, we want to be safe for people, so people have to come first. But secondly, I see the people section as a safety element. It's the psychological safety. Is everybody feeling great? But I'm not going to take Anthony's answer away from him by already preempting it. So what's your view on this, Anthony?
Very similar to yours, in fact, Philip. So I think that you've got to have the right kind of spirit, mindset within the team to even create a safe working environment. So I think that it is right that people come first. People's mindset, the psychological safety, how they feel in the team, whether they really feel empowered. Because once you have all of that, then you can use the power of the team to really create that safe working environment that we would typically look at as the second KPI after people.
Yeah, absolutely, Anthony. No, it's great. So I think the people section's got to be, it can't be mechanical. It's got to be really about the people, and it's it's the section that I think, if you look across the 6 of them, we want to spend probably the most time on, because without that engagement and safety of psychological safety, we're not going to get the results anyway. So no, it's great. Hey, listen, we're probably roughly halfway through, so we normally try to talk about a fun fact about yourself, and unless Anthony has something in particular to volunteer, I'm not going to ask him because he's done a few. So if you want to look in our back catalogue, you can hear a few things that Anthony's shared with us. So I'm really interested with our podcast host Jose in terms of not this podcast, but I know you do your own podcast or podcasts, so maybe you want to share a bit on that, Jose.
Sure, and hopefully you put these links underneath.
I will, Jose, absolutely.
I host 3 podcasts now. Started about during the pandemic with one of my friends. We really love movies and beer, so it's called One Beer, One Movie, where we talk about what we watch a movie during the week, and then during the podcast we drink one beer that's particularly or maybe has something to do with the movie, and then talk about the movie and rate the movie in 1 to 5 beer mugs, depending on how we like it. And from that, we kind of had a spin-off and created another one, which is called Top 5 in 20. Our top 5 something related about a movie, top 5 movie posters, or not just top 5 horror movies or whatever, but top 5, best fight scene in a movie. And that's only a 20-minute podcast. Try to be really quick. And recently, since I really love the outdoors, and we live in a very nice community where a bunch of us middle-aged dads created a league of disc golf. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but it's basically playing golf with frisbees. And we have a podcast for that as well. So 3 podcasts now.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Well, I've got a Kaizen for your first one. We should make it 2 beers and 1 movie.
Well, it usually goes like that.
Yeah.
So that's my Kaizen. But it's interesting. I didn't know about the Frisbee golf one. And our ex-SVP for supply chain, Cyril Fougeroux, who I'm still in touch with, he's the captain of his local club, and he's a massive Frisbee golf enthusiast. Absolutely, he's been playing it for many years, and he plays it internationally as well. So I'll have to let him know.
Yes.
I know at least one of your podcasts is Spanish speaking. Do you have an English speaking podcast as well?
Yep, the first 2 are Spanish, and it's called Throw Long and Prosper. Kind of note to Spock of live long and prosper, and that's in English. That's with my friends here or my neighbors in the neighborhood here in Southern California.
Okay, brilliant. Right, well, I'll definitely let Cyril know about that. He'd be very interested. Brilliant.
Love it.
Love it. Thank you. And Gary, what about yourself? What you shared a fun fact last time, but have you got a new one for us?
Yeah, I'm not going to share the same one, but just going back to Jose, I think if I have 10 beers, I might have a better chance of understanding your first 2 anyway. So,
Here is the international language.
Yeah, so brilliant. No, I was actually reflecting back, it was only today, I was reflecting back on all the modes of transport that I've actually worked on in my life. And I think apart from motorcycles and buses, I've actually worked on planes, I've worked on trains, I've worked in cars, I've worked on ships, and I've worked on submarines. So I think only motorbikes and buses is kind of left for me. And I've worked on helicopters as well. So I'm kind of stuck there between motorbikes and buses to finish my working life on. So hopefully GKN might even slip in there some point in the next few years, so I can tick those final 2 boxes off.
So there you go. When you have your next beer, Gary, the movie you can watch is that classic Planes, Trains,
Automobiles. Yeah. But I think the great thing of having worked in all of those industries, you can see the massive difference and feel the massive difference there is between all of them. Some of them are absolute dinosaurs that are incredibly slow to move, and some of them are, they're just like ants. They're just going all the time. So it's been really interesting.
Brilliant. It's great, and again, it's one of the nice mixes we try to get in the diversity of our team is the different industrial backgrounds and different perspectives that people can bring in to really help us. So thanks. Great to hear that, Gary. Brilliant. All right, so let's get back to the subject. It's we've had a really good discussion around what is daily management, what is problem solving. We've started to talk about the different levels of problem solving and the escalation that you can take from 3C to A3 to Six Sigma problem solving. And we use the term escalation in that, but maybe we should elaborate a little bit on what we mean by escalation and how we use it effectively. So, perhaps Gary, you could start us off with that.
I think that's it's a great point, and it's a point of if we get escalation incorrect, every problem is going to rise up through the chain. So therefore, people at the top have to make all the decisions and try and fix all of the problems. So what we've got to try and do is set the bandwidth of what is it that I'm accountable and responsible for, and I have the autonomy and the authority to actually fix what it is I'm trying to fix. And therefore, I should only escalate up something that becomes out of my control span, if that makes sense. So I've got to understand what my control span is. I've got to fix the problems that sit within that control span. And as soon as I step out of my level of control, that's the point in which I escalate up. Yeah, so if we think about our tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 system we have in GKN, or even tier 4, I've witnessed stuff in tier 3s that should have been dealt with at tier 1. And I've got tier 3s, I've got group leaders taking actions and taking taking the action away. Well, surely that should have happened at tier 2. Yeah. So I think what we've got to do is we've got to set the span of control, and we've got to get the people to understand that they can work within that span of control and they can fix those problems within that span. And as soon as they step out of it, that's my point of escalation up to my next level, because my next level has a span of control. And if it's within that, it's fixed there. And if it's not, then it moves into the next span of control, if that makes sense. Otherwise, we just end up with tier 4s, as an example, dealing with day-to-day issues that maybe a team leader should have solved or a group leader should have solved. And I just think there's maybe that little bit of misunderstanding of what is my control, and what can I or can I not do, what can I or can I not authorize, etc. So that for me is, escalation is fundamentally key, but I have to understand what I can and cannot control before I escalate, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely makes a lot of sense, that, Gary. It really does. And I think that's that creating what I like to call that freedom within a framework.
Absolutely, yeah.
Where the person has the freedom to solve problems within the span of control, but they know where the boundary conditions are. Once you hit those boundaries, hang on, this is going outside of my empowerment level. I now need to escalate and pull in somebody who can take that to make those decisions.
Yeah, exactly that.
Absolutely. So I guess actually I've got a follow-up question for Jose around this, because it links to the empowerment. But before we go to that, just in case people are wondering what we mean by the tiers, Anthony, maybe you could explain what a tier structure actually means.
Yeah, so the tier structure aligns very closely to the organisation design that the company's put into place. So I can speak openly about the way that we're organised in GKN. So we have shop floor employees, team members that report to a team leader. That would be responsible for what we call a zone, and that would effectively be the tier 1 level. So a team leader with his or her team members that are responsible for a zone, and that's tier 1. Then above that, we would have the group leader, the team leaders, and we might have some cross-functional supporting people that are part of that organisation. And within GKN Aerospace, that's what we call tier 2. Above tier 2, we've got tier 3. That could be the operations director with the group leaders. It could also be functions. For example, a manufacturing engineering function that has a series of manufacturing engineers that then the manufacturing engineers might be dedicated to areas of tier 2, but report functionally to a manufacturing engineer. So we might have functional tier 3s as well as the operations directors tier 3. And then above that, where the organisation's big enough, we've effectively got the site steering committee level, which is basically the site leadership at the tier 4 level. So, typically within GKN Aerospace, we've got for a lot of our sites 4 tiers, and above that, we have tier 5 at the business line level.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Anthony. I think that helps with that explanation, and I guess kind of to add some numbers to that. I mean, typically a tier 1 would be around 10 people, wouldn't it? Tier 2 is probably about 100 people. Tier 3 then becomes kind of scaled up on that. Tier 3 could be probably anything up to 1,000 people. And then tier 4 is slightly different because it kind of covers the same performance elements, but it's a much more cross-functional, weekly, maybe going more strategic than the tier 3. So for most sites, those 4 tiers will adequately cover what they need. It's only, I guess, once you get really sites over 1,000 people that you might have to go more tiers. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. So Jose, coming to you then again, Gary was again talking about this empowerment and about people understanding what they can do. What's that make you think when you hear how Gary was explaining that?
Yeah, that's a passion of mine, and that I get very passionate about this one because it is about empowerment, and empowerment is, again, we put a mirror in front of ourselves as leaders, and I've seen, like Gary mentioned, tier 3, tier 4 meetings where we're dealing with nuts and bolts, And leaders are very unhappy because they're dealing with this stuff. But leaders, those same leaders that are complaining, are not taking the time to educate and to cascade and to really empower. And sometimes our team leads and group leads escalate everything because they do not feel safe, going back to what Anthony mentioned, in making decisions. And that's because leadership has not really empowered them to fail and support them in that fail, and make that fail or in decision making as a learning point and spending the time. It's very easy to just say, you know your process, you deal with it. And then at the same time, oh my God, these guys are escalating everything. They should be making decisions. Well, Mr. Leader or Mrs. Leader, please go down there and talk to our associates and really teach them and coach them. That's the key of empowerment. That's the beautiful thing and powerful thing about daily management, escalation, and problem solving. All of us at the different levels should be making decisions on problems that I can control. And I should be really supported to make those decisions, whether it's maybe me as a supervisor or manager or director, don't agree with that decision, but I am going to support you and we're going to make it happen so I can create that culture of truly problem solve and truly escalate when I really have a problem because I own my little part of the business. That's what I've seen and I've struggled the most with organizations, breaking that paradigm. I feel so busy making decisions in my tier 3 or tier 4 that lasts 45 minutes when it should have lasted 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 15 minutes. And at the same time, our guys at tier 1 or tier 2 are spending 15, 20 minutes talking about a million things that have nothing to do with our metrics, right? Because they really don't understand it. And if they do, they don't feel safe to make decisions about their process. So, man, it's really about leadership, coaching, and cascading this empowerment down so it can then come up as practical problem solving at that particular level.
Yeah. So I guess one of the things that you maybe were implicit there, certainly I inferred from it, was that perhaps our leaders are not spending enough time on what we call servant leadership.
Yes.
Going serving. Do you think, and yeah, a bit of an, maybe it's too much of a closed question, so I'll try and think about how to ask it. But what's your opinion on the amount of time that our leadership spends on, let's call them upwards meetings, reporting, versus going on the shop floor and coaching and working with our people to help them with that empowerment?
That's a great question. And mature sites that I've worked with, leaders are out there on the floor, or where the magic happens, whether it's at the engineering department or with their planners, or yeah, at the cell level. In mature sites or sites that are in the process, our leaders are spending, honestly, about 80% of their times in meetings. And that's because we have not really understand what it is we have different tools, right? And we can do leader standard work and do an analysis and what's really worth it, what moves the needle. But mature sites spend about 80% of their time with the associates at the different levels, supporting them. They really do kamishibai properly, where they go and observe processes and then talk to our associates to understand how can the process serve them to be successful in order to meet our goals. Yeah, that's the biggest flaw, and I think it's human nature. When we're busy spinning our wheels, we think we're productive, and that also happens with our leaders. It really starts with education with our leaders, and our leaders are there's certain, we all have that. We have different types of personality, and they're very driven type A. So it's not just easy to come in and say, hey, stop what you're doing. This is not worth it. What's worth it is talking to your associates on the floor. That's the magic we have to create it. And that's when we deploy daily management. I love the way we deploy it, if we deploy it properly, where we start with leadership, them understanding what it is that is expected. What is this process of daily management? How does it function, and what is its purpose? And then we cascade it down until we get to the level. And when we get to the floor level, our leaders are already understanding what it's supposed to happen, and they mature with our associates to empower them to be safe in making decisions and to allow different levels of the organization to make decisions. So it's not easy, but it's properly designed. And honestly, right now I have two sides: one that it is very mature and one that it's immature. And it's that magic of in the middle. It's middle leadership that still doesn't want to let go, and tier one associates that are still hesitant because they haven't been truly made feel safe, going back to Anthony's comment, by truly empowering them. And we have to care about our associates. That's my 2 cents.
Can I just add a very quick thing in on that, Phil, if that's fine?
Yeah, please. Go ahead,
and I think we kind of have too many leaders who thrive on the responsibility that they hold. So as an example, if they go off on holiday for a week, they come back and someone says, "Oh, thank God you're back. We had this problem, really needed you," and all that. And they kind of thrive on that. Whereas, a good leader can have a week's holiday, come back, and everything absolutely worked. And it worked because I've empowered my people to make the right decisions, to do the right things. Yeah, therefore, I'm kind of want to make myself redundant. Yeah, I'm not making myself redundant in terms of the role, because I still maintain the accountability, but I pass the responsibility to the right people and are allowing them to do the right things at the right times and make the right decisions. So they don't need to keep coming to me to keep asking me for approval, for requests, and all of those things. And I think we kind of don't have enough of those. Not just in GKN, I think in industry as a whole. We focus too much on their performance, and daily management is an absolute brilliant tool for a team leader to gain trust from his team members or his associates or his operators, because it's an opportunity for him to do the things that they need him to do. And if he does them, guess what? His credibility is going to be massively up here. So.
Brilliant. No, I mean, listen, Jose, Gary, passionate answers there. I know you really care about it. No, you can feel the care, the belief in what you were saying, and that's really what we want on this podcast. So thank you for that. So I guess we're kind of coming to the close. A question before we go to the final advice one is to you, Anthony. So, listening to that and talk about daily management, and also earlier we talked about the amount of time leaders spend in meetings. Do you think there's a risk that when we implement daily management, what we don't do is get rid of all the superfluous meetings that it should create, that it should replace, I should say?
Yeah, I think we've got some examples of that, where there's other meetings taking place to solve the same kind of problems that should be solved at the lower tiers. I think absolutely, and I think the tool that immediately comes to mind to help make that visible and to get things reorganized and make sure that we're eliminating meetings, combining, or whatever the case may be, is leader standard work. Let's map out exactly what we've got, and let's figure out, what kind of decisions and problem solving, should be taking place at which level, and what kind of meeting and support structure is required to manage all of that. I really do think that, implementing a proper tiered daily management or daily accountability system should be replacing a lot of the other meetings that are taking place. So yeah, that's a great point. Not one that's previously come up in a lot of conversations, but absolutely true.
Oh, brilliant. Thanks, Anthony. Yeah, that's I think there's some food for thought with all of the comments that you just made, the three of you. So listen, just to close off, and I'd like all three of you to answer this question, but please try and keep it a little brief. Advice to anyone who wants to make a breakthrough in this area. Somebody who's saying, hey, either I'm already doing daily management, but I need to make it better, or I'm not doing daily management and I want to get started. What's your advice to those people? So Jose, let's start with you.
If you have not started daily management, run the activity to standard. Run it as it is designed. We usually just put up through 300 boards in a site and start measuring whatever it is, and we think we're doing daily management. That's not daily management. If you're already doing it and you're not being successful, I would say stop and focus in one area, do it properly and educate. Take the time. I mean, as leaders, you got to take a little bit of a piece of the humble pie and really go down and do daily management with our associates, teach them what it is. It is about caring about people and empowering people. Daily management, it is empowering people.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jose. I love that. Thank you. Gary, what about yourself?
Yeah, and again, I think I mentioned it, in the previous. It's, a couple of things for me. One is, if I'm a team leader, I can gain tremendous credibility within my team. What we have to think about with daily management is what am I trying to do? What am I trying to achieve? What is stopping me from achieving that? And then what can I influence and change in order to do that? And I think I mentioned on the previous podcast is, sometimes we fester with all the problems that we've got, and it's an opportunity to actually act upon those problems. Every day there are issues. Daily management would draw some of those out in terms of performance, but the hand-on system and speaking to the operators will also help and support that. And look, nobody wants problems. Nobody wants to come into work every day to be faced with masses and masses of problems that are going to stop me and stop my team from performing. So it's an opportunity to actually understand the effects of the actions that I'm taking. What do I need to do? How do I do it? What support do I need, etc. So yeah, it's a great tool if it's used in the correct manner. It's not a good tool if it's used incorrectly.
Mm-hmm.
Brilliant. Thanks, Gary. Great sage advice. I appreciate that. And then, last but not least, Anthony, what would your advice be?
Yeah, so I'll keep this brief, but for me, it's about three things. The first one is making sure that we've got the right organisation design in place to be able to support the daily management. We spoke a little bit about the organisation design, and span of control is very much closely linked, as is the way that the support functions, not just report, but where they sit on a day-to-day basis. So that's one org design. The second one is KPI selection. We didn't speak much about KPI selection, but this is critical. The KPIs that you choose have got to be ones that are leading, that actually enable leaders to daily manage. They don't want to be things that are very lagging, that we don't know the result of until the end of the week or the end of the month. So we've got to make sure that the KPI selection is done extremely well, making sure that they're leading. And then the third thing is really about is about problem solving. Nobody became an expert problem solver by a course that they went on. The only way that you get good at problem solving is by practicing. So if you're a leader and you want your people to improve their problem solving capability, keep requesting them to raise problem solving A3s for problems that exist, and then make sure that they're receiving the adequate coaching. And that's how they'll improve their problem-solving capability over time.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Anthony. And I could see Jose giving you a applause there as you said that. So that certainly resonated with Jose. So great. So listen, thank you very much, everyone. I really appreciate Jose, Gary, Anthony, your time and your advice on this. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope the listeners enjoyed it. I always do. So just leaves me to finish by saying, remember, it's about changing how you lead, not who you are.